Greetings everybody and welcome back to the Awesome Lindsay channel. Today I'm talking about the Weeylite K21 RGB LED light stick. This is a 12-inch light. The build quality is almost entirely plastic. There is a nice plastic diffuser that covers what the manual says is a 52, 52, 32 LED pieces. So I would assume that means there's 32 RGB pieces and then there's 52 cold and 52 warm. The CRI of this light is 95, the TLCI is 97, the maximum power is 8 watts. The lux ratings for the three most common color temperatures are 110 lux at 32K, 170 lux at 56K, and 200 lux at 85K. So this will run about an hour at 100%, and the manual says it'll take about 3 hours to fully charge. There is a USB-C port on the back for charging. You can also run it off of the USB-C port, but the light needs to be powered off to actually charge the battery. There's also 1/4-20 threads at either end, and then there's magnets on the back panel on both sides, so you should have no trouble mounting this thing. So this light has quite a few features, the first being a CCT mode, and this goes from 25 Kelvin to 85 Kelvin, and it does it in 100 Kelvin increments. The CCT mode also has a plus-minus 10 magenta green shift, which is pretty cool. So this has an HSL mode. This will allow you to cycle through the hue, how much of that hue, and then of course the luminance or brightness. And then of course there's also a handful of effects. It comes with all your standard ones such as lightning, police, ambulance, RGB cycle, etc. And they have a slow, a normal, and a fast option for all these effects. I'm gonna go ahead and point out a few notable effects that I think are pretty cool. So the TV effect is pretty nice. It's pretty non-repetitive, or at least it has a long enough pattern that it seemed non-repetitive to me. And I really like how there's some color incorporated in it rather than just a flickering of cool white light. There are 3 fireworks modes. I don't know why you'd need 3, but fireworks number 1 on normal speed, that setting looks the most realistic to me. There's an effect called flash lamp, and it's your standard paparazzi. This one is the better of the paparazzi effects that I've seen on these RGB lights. This one feels pretty non-repetitive to me as well. This is a cool white flash around 70 to 85 Kelvin. So even though there's already a lightning effect on here, the pattern is pretty noticeably repeating on that effect. So this flash lamp effect could be used if you don't want a noticeable repeating pattern. The other one that's pretty similar is the weld effect. This pattern is pretty random as well, so that one could be used where you need a flickering of cool white light and you don't want a repeating pattern. There's a flame/candle light. On many lights, it's just an intensity fading of around 32 Kelvin. On here, it looks like they're actually using the yellow RGB hue, but I like how the yellow hue color shifts a little bit for just a bit more realism. The only downside is there are some segments of the light pattern where the light seems to cut out entirely, which kind of feels a little bit jarring. I do have to say that this light has some of the more fun effects that I've used on these RGB lights, and even with some of the repeating pattern ones, you actually might be able to make it quite a bit less noticeable in the edit. For instance, if you're cutting back and forth between 2 cameras. So there are a couple ways to control this light. First, most obviously, are the buttons on the unit itself. Second, they do make a universal remote. So if you have another Weeylite product, then your remote may work with this light. And I say may because I only have a Ninja 300, and this remote, which looks like this, it does work. But I'm not familiar enough with their entire lineup of products to know if all remotes will work. The other way is via the app, which I feel has a pretty smooth interface. It's everything you need in a simple and easy to understand layout. I wanted to take you through the app just a little bit. There's quite a lot of functionality in here. I like the interface. It's very simple, very easy to use. Everything's very clearly labeled. So you can, if you have more than one light, you can actually group them together in however you want. You can put 2 in one group, 1 in another. You can select up to 6 groups. You can have 1 light per group. There's a lot of options there. So to move around the app, if you want to go into the CCT mode, you can push the CCT. You can slide to dial in your color to a specific color. You have your magenta and your green shift, or you can just dial in one of these preset options down here at the bottom. To get back to your main menu, there's a couple of dots down at the very bottom here. You can dial in HSL, so your hue, And then you can decide how saturated you want the hue, and then your luminance, how bright you want it. You have RGBW, so you can move this around, dial in a specific RGB color. You have some XY coordinates, so you can dial that in. There's color chips, which are Roscoe and Lee filters. You might have to turn this thing off if you're already on the CCT mode to activate the filters, but this will kind of try to emulate a few different types of filters. So if you're using these on a set, you can do that. You have your effects modes. These things are all pretty clearly labeled out here on whatever ones you want to use. There's quite a variety of these, and then you can set your slow, medium, and fast of each one of them, and then your brightness down here at the bottom. You can save scenes, so if you have a few places you already like to use these lights and you just want to dial up scenes instantly, you can save them in here. So another feature I thought was pretty cool is you have a color picker. So if you want to emulate, let's say this orange color here, what you can do is tap on the color picker, and then it'll bring up your camera. You'll point your camera at whatever color you want to emulate, and then just match the crosshairs on it, and then it'll hit your camera icon. It will bring up your camera roll. You can just push cancel or slide it down, and then it'll stick with the color that you've got. If you want to bring up another color, all you have to do is push the camera button again. I have the camera too close to these lights, so it's probably going to bleed onto here, but let's say I want to emulate this greenish color. Bring up your camera again, hold up the greenish color, hit the picture taking icon, and then you've got a color saved in here, and then you can go back to your main menu from there. So with these scenes and color chips and a few of these ones, you do have to use the app, obviously, to get to those features, but it's really cool that they've included them in this light. So I haven't had this long enough to put it through its paces, but honestly, I really only have one con at this moment, and there's tons of pros. It's a really cool, fairly inexpensive light, and it does a lot of really fun stuff. I like the tube design. It just makes it that much more convenient, kind of just tuck in spaces, uses an accent light, or just use the fun effects on it. So the only con I can really think of is a minor one. It would be handy if the USB charging port was on the end. So that way you could kind of magnetize this to something, and then you could charge it or just use the power mains at the same time. Because where the port is right now clearly makes that a little bit difficult, but it's really no deal breaker, honestly. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the info for this Weeylite K21 tube light. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments field. I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks everyone for watching.